Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Nirvan Balkisoon, other officers, members, friends of the Friends and supporters of Friends of Trinidad and Tobago, thank you for your warm, kind, and generous welcome. Let me first of all thank Mr. Balkisoon especially for being the person who has been instrumental in having me over here to speak to you. And it is my great honor and pleasure so to do. As the topic that I have been asked to speak upon is Basdeo Panday, past, present, and future. Much of what I have to say, unfortunately, has already been said. And as a matter of fact, to say some things about me so nice that I did not even know myself. And I feel that I shouldn't attempt to gild the lily, they having done such a good job. But they're not going to stop me from tonight from saying what I have to say. So let us start from the beginning. I was born on the 25th of March 1933 in the rural village of St. Julian to poor peasant farmers who planted a variety of crops which they sold in the market and elsewhere to sustain their family. I attended the New Grant Government School and the St. Julian CM School, and in those days it was actually called CMI Schools. I don't know how many of you remember that. Canadian Mission Indian Schools. And then it became CM Schools, and now it is called Presbyterian School. That's history. I attended that school as a child, a kid, and until I was about 12 years old. During that time that I attended school, I also, of course, had to help my parents in the field, and many of you who come from Trinidad would know that children, before they go to school and so on, would go in the fields to help their parents. So I helped my parents in the fields like other children. I drove our mule cart to the buying scales, that is the depot where you sell your canes. We were poor, but we were not hungry. The family was almost self-sufficient. We ate the rice we grew, the vegetables we grew. We made chocolate from the cocoa we planted. We even made sugar from the canes. I wish I had time to tell you how we did it. We made oil from coconuts, so that, as I say, the family was almost self-sufficient. At the age of 12, my father's uncle, a man called J.H. Dubé, who lived in San Fernando and worked for the law firm, took me to stay with him, and he sent me to Presentation College. When it was time to start college, I had to find a pair of shoes. I am sure you all know that when you are little children in the village, you don't wear shoes. I walked 4 miles on a gravel road to go to school barefooted. But when you are young and you're barefooted, your feet grow like this. Your toes don't grow like that. It grows like this because you have no shoes. So when the time came for me to go to college, I couldn't get a pair of shoes to fit my feet. If they got one broad enough, it was too long. And if they got one short enough that fitted, it was too narrow. And you wouldn't believe this, but my uncle, praise God for him, bless his soul. He took me to a shoemaker. I don't know how many of you remember San Fernando. If you remember San Fernando and you remember where Presentation College is, you would know just as you come down the hill from Presentation, there was Rambaran Pharmacy. Opposite Rambaran Pharmacy, there was Lord Street. And in Lord Street there was a Chinese shoemaker by the name of Amao. And he took me to that shoemaker, and the shoemaker built a shoe around my feet. And that was what, since I remember, so many, but that I remembered. School fees in those days, to tell you the significance of this pair of shoe, you paid $16 a term for school fees. And my poor uncle paid $14 to build the shoes. Well, I went to college for a few years, and in 1951, I obtained a school certificate from Presentation College, and then I worked, well, after that, couldn't get a job. I worked as a cane wearer, I worked as a school teacher, and as a civil servant for 7 years. And during that 7 years, at a salary of around $100 a month, it was $84 as a teacher and $102 a month as a civil servant, I managed to save, thank you so much, in 7 years, I managed to save $500. And with that $500, I bought a ticket on an Italian cargo boat for $312 to come to England. It took 14 days to reach here because it went to Genoa. It was an Italian boat. Where else should it go? It went to Genoa, and from Genoa I went by train to Calais, and from Calais I went by ferry to Southampton and then to England. That was how traveling was in those days. It took me 14 days to get from Trinidad to London. I left London, so when I left London in 1975, I had $100 in my pocket, and that is about 20 pounds in those days. So I had no job, and I had nothing, and my parents were too poor to give me any money. So there in London, I worked at several jobs. While working, I'd work and study and work and so on. And I worked as a laborer on a building site. I worked as an electrician, as a clerk of the London County Council, as an actor for some time, as you have heard. I did this for 9 years. And during those 9 years, I studied drama, I studied law, and I studied economics and politics. That takes me to 1975, but in 1975, I got a scholarship, a Commonwealth scholarship, to do my PhD at the Delhi School of Economics and Political Science of the Delhi University. And I thought that what I would do is, well, I was in London, let me come home, it was July 65, let me come home and see my parents, and then I'd go off to India, reach India for October 1st when the school term would start. When I got to Trinidad, a struggle was taking place in Trinidad, which was being led by a man called Stephen Mirage, C.L.R. James, Jack Kelshaw, George Weeks, and so on. And they were struggling against the attempt of Eric Williams to introduce into the Parliament a bill which was called the Industrial Stabilization Bill. And it was a bill that sought to restrict the right of workers to strike. And so these guys were involved in the struggle, and to make a long story short, I got involved with them in that struggle, packed up my scholarship to India, and the rest was history. As you heard, I stayed home and set up practice as a lawyer. Young, I was what, 33 years old. And like fools that rush in where angel fears to tread, I plunged feet first into politics. I contested the 1966 general elections, with against Ibn Murad and CLRG and so on. And it was 36 seats in Parliament at the time. And we tried to unite the country on racial lines. There were the PNM that was supported by the Afro-Trinidadians. And there was the DLP that was supported by the Indo-Trinidadians. The Africans and Indians were divided very sharply, particularly at the political times, elections. So we thought that we could break this barrier of race and so on. Of course, the country was not ready for us. And we created history, all of us who went up for election, the 36 of us. When the 36 of us lost our deposits. When I became a lawyer, I did a lot of practice in that same act we were fighting. I'd set up the industrial court and said that before you go to strike, you must go to the court and this and that and the other. So that having studied both law and economics, I began practicing in the courts, including the industrial court, but representing the workers only. I represented no employers. And I did that for quite a while. And became quite popular. Because I would not only do their cases in court, but foolishly or otherwise, when they are marching, I would march with them. And I would demonstrate with them. And when they're striking, I would be among the strikers and go on. Of course, which landed me up in jail several times. After 1966 elections, when there were the voting machines, we decided that we will protest against the use of voting machines because we thought it was introduced by Williams in order to steal the elections. As part of that process, the next elections that followed was the 1971 general elections, and we did not contest that. We fought and succeeded. Mostly a workers-based party, and we contested the 1975 elections. We won 10 seats, the second largest number to the PNM, and I became leader of the opposition, a position which I had to endure for over 20 years. In 1986, the ULF was dissolved in order to join forces with the newly formed political party called the NAR, the National Alliance for Reconstruction. And it was quite a popular party led by Robinson. And we won the election with a resounding majority. As I told you, the 38 seats, we won 33 seats. We beat the PNM into a frazzle. It was the first time in 20 years that the PNM had ever been defeated in an elections. When I joined with Mr. Robinson in order to have a single party to beat the PNM, I made it a condition, and I told him that I'm joining with you all on one condition. And that condition is that you will promise that we will end the discrimination and the alienation and the racism in Trinidad. And in order to be Prime Minister, I suppose he didn't care what he promised. And he promised that he would do so. However, once we won the elections, it was clear that he was going to renege on that promise. And, but we didn't lie down and take it. While inside the party we began to fight. We began to say that we insist that you end the alienation that people feel, you end the discrimination, you end the marginalization, you end the historical racism. And the thing came to a head when he brought a cabinet note to the cabinet one day to appoint people to boards. Now, there were very, very few Indians on the boards. I think there was, if you look at the time when we came to office, only 7% of the state boards had, as members of the boards, Indians as representatives. Only 7%. And we tell them that that can't happen. So every time the cabinet had to appoint people to the board, we'd say, this is the time. We want you to appoint more Indians and so on. And he got very angry. And I remember, how much time do I have?
Any amount of time you want.
Yes, you're so kind. I remember one day he got very angry when the cabinet and we said, but the names you have here, you are not redressing the imbalance. Here, there are still Indians not being represented. And he got angry one day and he says, well, where are your choices? If you want this so much, where are the names? At the next meeting, we raised the point again, and he got angry again. And he said, well, where are the names? And Kelvin Ramnath, we were prepared for him that time. Kelvin Ramnath went in his back pocket, pulled out a long list of names and handed it to him. He even got angrier. But we continued and persisted, and we had reached from, I think, 7% to about 17% now of the boards. There were 17% Indians on the state boards by that kind of fact that we were carrying in. But we paid an awful price for it. Because he was so angry that eventually he fired us, the strong elements of the ULF, the former ULF. He fired us from the cabinet, and eventually fired us from the party. At that time, I think I ought to mention, he fired myself, he fired John Humphrey, he fired Kelvin Ramnath, Trevor Sudama and so on. And Winston Libaran, Brinsley Samaru, Sahadeo Basdeo, Bo Tiwari. I mention these names because I think they're coming up again. And they stayed with Robinson. They refused to join us in this struggle. And we were out in the rain again. When he fired us, our supporters became so angry that they formed something. The year he expelled us was 1988. And our supporters formed something called Club 98. 88, I beg your pardon. Club 88. And Club 88 later morphed into the UNC, which won 13 seats in the 1991 elections. And that was enough with Robinson's 1990, no, I'm getting the dates mixed up, but the 1986 elections was the NAR, and the 1991 elections, again, we formed the UNC, and the UNC won 13 seats in the 1991 elections, I went into the opposition. The next, in 1995, we were strong enough to win majority of seats, and I became Prime Minister, as you were told a little earlier on. In the next election, 2000, the UNC again formed the government. We again beat the PNM. And it was the first time in history that a single party, not a coalition of parties, but a single party had defeated the mighty PNM. Then Ramesh, we were the government, and for the second time, we won the 2000 elections. But Indians will always be Indians, and therefore Ramesh Maharaj, Trevor Sudama, and Ralph Maraj broke away from the government and began voting with the opposition. So the small majority we had, we lost it. So although we were in the government, we could not run the government because we did not have majority. I was therefore placed in a position where I had no choice. I could have stayed in Parliament and I could have not called the Parliament and just keep the office, but I thought that would be to renege on the promises. And if I couldn't use my office to improve the quality of life of people, then I didn't want to be in office. So what I did is I decided that I'm going to call the elections. And I asked the President to dissolve Parliament and call the elections, and that was the elections of 2001. And in the elections of 2001, we won 18 seats and PNM won 18 seats. But we had a majority of popular votes. And Robinson broke all conventional practices and norms and customs, and he appointed as Prime Minister Manning, although Manning had less votes. And of course, the appointment of Manning, as you all would know, threw the country into a tailspin for the next 10 years. Manning won the elections of 2005 and the elections of 2007, and of course I went back into the opposition. I did not contest the elections of 2010, and I am now therefore a private citizen. I'm no longer a member of Parliament. What I have done though, I have set up something called the Basdeo Panday Foundation, which has its head office at the Rienzi complex in Cuba. And I go there every day, and especially on Wednesdays, and I go there for only one reason: to serve the poor and the powerless, the helpless, the people who do not know where to turn when they have a problem. And you would be surprised to know how helpless the poor people are, how helpless they are when they have a problem and they don't know where to turn. They are confronted by a mighty bureaucracy that is so uncouth and gives them the runaround. They don't know where to turn. So I decided that I would set up the Basdeo Foundation to deal with that kind of problem. So I go there, and people come with all kinds of problems, and I try my best to help them. They come when they can't meet their parliamentary representatives, they can't meet their councillors, and we do that, of course, free of charge. We survive on small donations, which keep the office staff going, and pay for the telephone and paper and postage and that sort of thing. This is the work that I'm now doing, and I can tell you that I'm very emotionally and psychologically satisfied. It's very satisfying to know that you can help the poor. I have a rule in my office there that no one shall come into this office crying and leave crying. If they come into this office, and usually they're crying because they have problems and so on. Sometimes I could help them and solve the problems. And when I can't help them and I can't solve the problems, I make sure I crack a good joke and they would leave the office laughing. Let me give you some of the examples of the problems they face. Some of them have applied for housing, state housing, for 10, 15, 20 years. And they don't get it. But when they go to the Ministry of Housing, they can't even get a reply. They get to run around and that sort of thing. And I have written about 30 letters to the Minister of Housing, asking him to tell these people what is happening to their application. Why are they being served and so on. As a matter of fact, the Ministry of Housing was one of the most corrupt ministries under the PNM. It continues to be so under the PP government. Flooding. Every time it rains in Trinidad it floods because there is extensive damages caused, particularly among farmers. That is from Trinidad. Let me give you a joke about this. Because people couldn't meet on the parliamentary representatives, I foolishly went on radio and on TV, and I said that this telephone of mine, I shall always answer it, whatever happens. It will always be on. Even if I go in the toilet, I can. The only time I look at it is in the bathroom. I can't get what you see. Let me go on with what I was doing. People, they have problems with their flooding and so on and so forth. Their crops are damaged. Every time that happens now, but first when it used to happen under the PNM and we quarreled about it, we were the opposition, Manning used to say, what are you quarreling about? Flooding is an act of God. And I said, no sir. Rain is an act of God. Flooding is an act of PNM. Strangely, it continues today. Every time it floods now, my Prime Minister put on tall boots and go and visit the flooding and so on and make promises that it will be solved. Well, this year she didn't have any tall boots, so she put on some kind of soldier boots and so on. But the same is the same. Every time there's a flood, they put on tall boots and make a survey, and that's the end of that. And they hand out some hampers. The roads and drains. People's roads and drains have been left in bad condition for a long time, and people come to me, they say, look, my drain, I can't move the house, there's mud and so on, the children can't go to school and that sort of thing. And I write to the authorities on their behalf and see what I can do. There are people who can't get the pension benefits because they don't know how to fill the forms. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn, which office to go to. The Basdeo Panday Foundation does that kind of thing, help them to fill out the form, help them to send it to the right place, and so on. There are workers from Caroni who get what something called VSEP, Voluntary Employment Separation Package, and the government is refusing to give them the land and so on that was promised to them. That is a very serious problem. But the government has set up no mechanism, no machinery by which the people could go to have their problems solved. So I'm always ringing and calling government departments and whatever in order to help these ex-workers of Caroni get the land that was promised to them, get their pensions, with some of them pensions stuff. Okay, yeah, but this is the one I think I have to tell. There is also, people come with personal problems. And the personal problems usually mean family problems. And the family is either quarreling about the property, son wants to cheat the mother and the father, and this and that, the other, and so on. Or problem with the neighbor boundary. You know, Indian must have problem with boundary. So these are the kinds of personal problems they come with. And they come with problems about the wayward son or daughter leave the house and go on and so on and so forth. But the one that even they come to me when some of the wives are wayward. And I must give you this one because it's too good. One day a man came to me to the office and he says, boss, you have to help me. I said, okay. What's the problem? He said, only you could help me. Nobody else could help me but you. I said, yeah, no, I know. But what's the problem? He said, you have to help me, you have to help me. Can't guarantee you start the problem. Eventually, he said, I said, come on, man, tell me, what's the problem? He said, my wife leave me. So I said, what do you expect me to do for that? Your wife leave you. He said, boss, she like you plenty. And anything you tell she will do, she'll listen to you. So I said, what do you want me to do then? I said, go and talk to she. I want to go and talk to she. So I tell him, okay, Sunday coming, I tell you what, we'll go, both of us will go. Now, this is the road here, and to get to their house, you go up a track. little hill there. So I tell him, we went, I tell him, I said, you stay down in the car. Because they promised to chop him up and thing if he only come there, you money, but chop him up. So I went up alone and I talked to them and they said, of course, happy and so on and so forth. I said, I might come with about a little problem, you know. They say, what? Call the fellow's name. They say, man, if we see him, we kill him. That's a quarrel and so. So I said, I tell the woman, I said, why? What happened? Oh, you don't know that man? He beat me. When he come home, he half jumped. He shot a plate of food out the window and so on. And she come more money for complaints. This is why she left. So I decided I had to use some kind of psychology. So I said, he did that? Why the nasty SOB? He tell me he never touched you. He tell me he never touched you. Lying, so on, so on. I started to push up the fella. Which gave them the confidence. They said, not so much on his side of this. Cussing up the fella on their behalf. So I said, I'll tell you something. He down the hill in a car, and I'm going to bring him up, this rascal. I'm going to bring him up here, and I'm going to confront him with all them lies he told me and so on. So I went down the hill, brought him up. At least they had shot him yet. But I brought him up, sitting up, and the moment he sat down, I launched one attack on him. I said, you nasty SOB, you this, you that. You tell me that you don't touch this woman, and she tell me, oh, you're bitchy and this and that and blah, blah, blah. I start quarreling with him in their presence. I said, well, I'll tell you one thing, fella. I'll tell you one thing. I am going to ask this lady to come back home. And if you so much as touch her, I will do that divorce case myself for no cost. She said, oh, all right, I'll go back. She went back and they're very happy. I tell you this one because it's probably one of the funniest ones that happened to me. But I'll take all night if I do this. The one that I thought was most hurtful, the man came to me and he said, Mr. Panday, can you make an appointment for me to see my MP? I said, you come to me, make an appointment to see your MP. Why you don't go to your MP's office? He said, I went there. And when I went there, they tell me, leave your phone number, he will call you when you have time. And 3 months had passed, and he hadn't called the man, can't meet his MP. And I asked him, why you want to meet your MP? He says he went to the Canadian, he has a brother in Canada. And his brother was ailing, sick of dying. And he wanted to come to Canada to see his brother before his brother died. And when he went to the Canadian embassy, they told him, well, listen, when he told them his plight, they said, look, if you get a letter from your MP to say that your brother really sick, and you're only going to see him and you'll come back and so on, we'll give you the visa. But he can't meet his MP. I think his brother eventually died, and he never got the visa. That's the kind of work we try to do. Sometimes the people only need a shoulder to cry on. That happens very often. Anyway, if I go to talk to you about all these things, it will take all night. So let me go on. We talk about Basdeo Panday past. I told you that already. And we talk about Basdeo Panday present. That's what I'm talking about now. And I think I anticipated that you may want to ask some questions, so I thought I may answer them before you ask. So I thought if I come to make a speech, you talk to you and so on, I've been in politics for all these years. One of the things that you might want to ask me is what do I regard as some of the greatest achievements in my life? And the answer to that is the one that they told you about, the sugar workers. When I became president of the union in 1973, the wages of a worker a laborer was 63 cents an hour, $5.04 a day. They worked for about 5 to 6 months of the year. Their annual average income was about between $500 and $600 per year. They lived in grinding poverty. There were some of them who still lived in mud huts covered with carrot leaves. I surely know you could build a house in mud huts and so on, covered with carrot. Some of them still live in what they call carrot houses. So poor they were. And first struggle I carried out in '74 was I began fighting for them to get guaranteed work. Not work for only 3, 4, 5 months of the year, but work for the whole year. And that was a big struggle. I went on strike, took the workers out on strike. I remember my trade union friends laughing at me. They say, all of us in the other trade union fighting for more pay, and they fighting for more work. But of course, more work meant more pay. That fight, the following year, but I got through with that. The company couldn't stand the strikes we were launching on them. And so we got through it. The following year, 1975, I launched another struggle. And this time, I launched a struggle for 100% wage increase. Everybody thought it was ridiculous. But I pointed out to them that 100% means a move from $5 a day to $10 a day. And you'll say, the government had no people on the URP doing nothing. Sugar workers work so hard. Anyway, that fight too, after long, bitter struggle, was won. Sugar workers were so poor and so denied the right to decent living that I remember when they got the back pay, a fella ran down to the store and he buy a radio, only to find out when he went home he had no electricity. There was one of them who went down to the store, buy a fridge. When the fridge reached home, you can't go through the door too small. All that kinds of thing happened, but it indicated to me that here were people longing to live like decent people, and couldn't because they were too poor. That I consider to be the greatest achievement of my life, because what I did by doing that, I took 10,000 sugar workers out of poverty. Each of them had 5 children each, generally. That would be approximately 50,000 people. Took them out of grinding poverty into some kind of decent living. And that was done when I was not a politician. I was not a member of parliament. Yes, I became a member of parliament, yes, later, 76. So that I think was one of the greatest thing I did. Second thing I like that I've done, when I became Prime Minister, I decided that I will introduce something called a revolution in education. I don't know if you all remember, but what used to happen every year, children leaving primary school will have to take something called the common entrance exam. Okay? And the common entrance exam was not designed to determine who went on to secondary school. It was designed to determine who will not. And so every year, about 7,000 to 8,000 children leaving primary school would be thrown on the dung heap. They would have no medical education, no skill, no training. And I decided that I'll do something about that. And when I asked, why don't we send everybody to school? And the answer was, well, we haven't got places for them. That's why we have the exam. We have the exam to determine who won't go, because we don't have enough places. So surely, logic would tell you that in which case all you do is to build schools and create more secondary school free of charge. I also wanted to have a greater participation in tertiary education. So what I did then, I introduced something called a dollar for dollar program. And I would tell parents, said, if you want to send your child to school and you haven't got enough money, for every dollar you put, the government will put $1. And so it reduced by half, therefore, the cost to the parent of sending the child to school, and so many children were able to go into university. We established the Institute of Technology. And so on. Oh, there's something I forgot to tell you. When the sugar workers were poor, as I said they were, to cut a ton of cane, you had to cut 2 tons of cane for the day to get a day work. To cut a ton of cane was $3.99. I remember that very well. And women used to go into the fields. So when the women went into the fields, they couldn't make this 2 tons per day. And they used to carry the children, because they had a system that you'd put a chain on the ground, and when they cut the cane, you have to put it there in a bundle, and they pull the chain and the crane will come and take it and so on. And what the mothers used to do is to carry the children to the fields. So she will cut and they will bundle. And so there was a cycle of creating unskilled labor for the sugar industry. And when I got that increase that I told you, I had a very big fight with my own workers to get the children out of the cane fields. We got the children out of the cane fields, and today many of them are professionals. We set up something called the Institute of Technology, because we wanted to train people in skills, so that a person may not have a university degree, but he may have a skill which would enable him to get a job and so sustain his life and have a better quality of life. So I introduced a program called, we said, you know, everybody talk about the trickle-down economy. We are going to introduce the trickle-up economy. And that is to say, in order to make people better off, instead of handing money from the top, which disappears before it reaches the bottom anyway, what you do is you educate people, give them skills, so they'll have better jobs, and then that way their lives will improve and they will be better off in the society. That was one of the programs we introduced on the economic front. By the training and so on, when I came into office as Prime Minister, unemployment was 18%. And that 18% was not counting those people on URP, those make work programs. They called them unemployed, but really they were unemployed, sitting down doing nothing and getting paid. You know, all you know, some of you fellows know about that. So unemployment was really 18%, the official figures were 18%, and by this struggle we were able, can't tell you tonight how I did it. What I did is I encouraged investors to come into the country, made the country investor friendly, went to the United States, spoke to the Chamber of Commerce of several of the states in the United States, telling them come home and invest, and that sort of thing. And when they came home and invested, we were able to reduce unemployment from 18% to 10%, not by expanding the dependency programs of Europeans and so on, but by creating real jobs, permanent jobs and well-paid jobs. Another thing I did, which I don't know if it was a blessing or disguise, in order, a businessman coming to your country, and the first thing he does, he comes into the country and he sees a ramshackle airport. And you asking him to come here and invest millions of dollars, and he comes to an airport where the roof leaking or not. So I decided that I'd end that. And I built a brand new airport. Up to today, I don't know if it's a blessing or a disguise, but But that airport is one of the finest airports in the Caribbean. And it became the pride and joy of every Trinidadian, and the envy of the government. And so they have brought cases against people and doesn't matter. These are some of the things. If there are other things that I haven't touched upon, when question time comes, you may ask me. You ask what is. So I've talked about the past. I've talked about the present, and you ask me. I must talk about the future. As I said, I've abandoned electoral politics, and I'm now devoting much of my time to simply using what little strength I have to help the poor people to a better life in the best way that I can, having regard to my present position where I have no power. But I am enjoying it. It provides tremendous emotional and psychological satisfaction to see poor old people come into your office and leave smiling. That's very gratifying. So, within the last 6 months or so, though, I am being inundated with requests to re-enter the political fray. It would appear that many people, and particularly the rank and file of our party, incidentally that's a party I formed 20 years ago, and those people are very dissatisfied with the present government. Some of them, the rank and file in particular, the humble people, the masses that work so hard to put the government, this PP government, into power, have become very disenchanted with the government. The complaints range far and wide. They include the observation that the rewards of struggle to put the government in power is now being enjoyed by the Johnnies come lately, the opportunists who have jumped onto the bandwagon, the sycophants and flatterers, and by the friends and family of those in office. While the rank and file people are being treated with contempt and contumely, with scorn and abandonment, it would appear that what is happening in Trinidad is that there is developing what is called a political vacuum. People voted against the PNM because they hated the PNM. And now they have the PP government, and they're disappointed in the PP government. And so a political vacuum is being created in the country. I don't know what's going to happen. But I think a third force will arise. How, when, why, I don't know. I have noted one thing in Trinidad, and if you read the papers, you too will notice it. And that is, there's an increase in family violence. That is, husband and wife killing one another, father, son, mother, and so on. I'm sure those who get the newspapers would see that there's an increase in that violence, internal violence in the family. And I feel that the reason for that is the frustration that people feel with the government. There's enormous frustration. And when they're frustrated, they take it out on the things nearest to them, who is the wife and the children, or the father or the mother. So, a large section of the rank and file are calling on me to return to electoral politics, but I'm reluctant to do so. I am in a quandary, really, and I do not know what to do. There is also a call that we should attempt to take back the party, that is the UNC, because what is in government is not a UNC government. A UNC government looked after the poor. It didn't treat the poor with scorn. All the policies that the UNC had was gone. There's no UNC government, there's a PP government. And probably that's exactly what it is, PP. That was a slip of my tongue. That's why I get in trouble all the time, actually. I didn't write that. That's why I get into trouble. But to come back to seriousness, and it's awfully serious, they're arguing, and I think rightly so, that the ministers should not control the government. The government, I beg your pardon, the government, which are the ministers, should not control the party. That the party should control the government. And therefore no government minister should have any office in the party. So the party now becomes strong and independent of the government, and the party is able to put pressure upon the government to do what the people want. That is their argument, and they are asking me to lead that struggle. I'm glad we have this meeting tonight, because when question time comes, I want you to advise me what you think I ought to do. So instead of me determining my future, I'm going to ask you to do that for me tonight. Okay. So my brothers and sisters, maybe you'll help me to decide where my future will go. So now, brothers, sisters, I've tried to fulfill my remit of addressing you on the topic, Basdeo Panday, past, present, and future, to the best of my ability. There is so much more to say after being in public life for more than 40 years. I have mentioned only those things which I thought you may be interested in. I may have been totally off the mark. That is why I've asked for a longer time to be allocated to questions which you may raise, and I shall do my best to respond to all of them. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you and for your kind hospitality, but thank you most of all for listening to me. Thank you, and may God bless you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, former Prime Minister, the Honourable Basdeo Panday. Isn't he magnificent? And he's 78 years old. I think he's done a wonderful job here tonight. So please, round of applause. Now, of course, as you know, this is a tribute to the Honourable former Prime Minister Basdeo Panday. So we have a small presentation in recognition of his achievement presented by the President, Mr. Krishna Nandkisur, accompanied by the Secretary, Mr. E.M. Maharaj, and of course myself, past President, is here. So round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, as we bring small token of his accomplishment to the people and the nation of Trinidad and Tobago. What about our hot t-shirt? Of course, we want to ensure that he does not leave Toronto without a Friends of Trinidad and Tobago t-shirt. The use of.
I don't know if this was deliberate, but this is the UNC color. Orange.
He's quite right. It was not deliberate. Well, ladies and gentlemen, well, right now I'm sure everybody's hungry, so we'll have dinner. Please, in an orderly manner, you could please go and help yourself. It's buffet style. I'm not going to call table numbers, but we're all big people. Please go ahead and have your dinner right now.